Hey everybody, how's it going? I am your host Adrian, coming to you almost live from lovely Petaluma, California, here in Studio MC2 at QuickSurf Internet Studios. The Geekinator is a proud member of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Do feel free to head on over to techpodcast.com. Check out all the other technology-related shows over there as well. I'd like to encourage everybody to visit us online over at quicksurf.com. Please do subscribe to the show if you have not already done so. It helps support the show and gives me a beat as to how many regular listeners or how many people are in the audience, whether you're listening or watching the video. And you can find the subscribe links in the show notes of every episode. You can subscribe to Og Vorbis, MP3, and I have a standard def and a high def video feed as well, respectively. And you can find us on YouTube, blip.tv, Stitcher Radio, and Daily Motion. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the cool stuff that I found for this episode. Over at Like Cool, they have a story here about the 2014 Dodge SRT Viper TA. This is one sweet looking car. So SRT, in collaboration with Professional Road Racers, is making the 2014 SRT Viper TA, which stands for Time Attack. It's based on the SRT Viper model. The new 2014 TA features Pirelli P0 Corsa tires, Bilstein suspension, upgraded Brembo brakes, and an advanced aerodynamics package with carbon fiber front splitters and a rear spoiler. It's powered by a handcrafted all-aluminum 8.4 liter mid-front V10 with overhead valves. The performance is right around 640 horsepower and 600 foot-pounds of torque. So this baby is got some serious power. They're only building 33 units in Crusher Orange, and this thing looks pretty awesome. You got to check it out. By all means, stop by the website over at Like Cool and check it out. I've got everything linked up in the show notes. Over at Read Write, Google Keep takes aim at Evernote and also Apple. So Google has released a note-taking, and I'm using air quotes here for those of you who are listening, a note-taking application called Google Keep. It supposedly is supposed to be like Evernote, and I'm a heavy Evernote user, so I'll, undoubtedly I'll be, looking at Google Keep to see what's up. But quite frankly, I'd be hard pressed to move away from Evernote unless Google Keep was just a superior application. Definitely check it out. You should use what works for you. That's what I always advocate. You should use what works for you. And so far, Evernote works for me. But if Google Keep is compelling enough, I might be persuaded to do something with it. From coolestgadgets.com, in a galaxy far, far away, the coolest cufflinks ever. This is pretty neat. These are R2-D2 cufflinks that also this is the geeky part. They also function as a USB thumb drive. That's right. They look like a little, what you would imagine. There's a picture up here on the website of what you would imagine to be a cufflink that looks like R2-D2 for, the French style cuffs. And you can split it apart, and it's a USB thumb drive as well. Pretty neat. Definitely on the geeky side. From Hackaday, there's an analog input expansion board for the Raspberry Pi. Ken Olsen needed a bunch of analog inputs for his model railroad project. He wanted to use the Raspberry Pi board, but alas, there are no analog inputs available on the GPIO header. But there is SPI. So he used an online service to design his analog input expansion boards, and basically they connect to the Raspberry Pi via SPI. And so he has a way to get analog inputs. Pretty neat if you ask me. Definitely check it out. It looks fairly professional, so definitely something to look at. From Wired.com, Jeff Bezos has recovered Apollo rocket engines from the deep ocean. After lying on the ocean floor for more than 40 years, 2 Apollo rocket engines that helped deliver astronauts to the moon are once again seeing the light of day. A team organized by Jeff Bezos spent 3 weeks fishing at sea to recover the corroded F-1 engines, which sat more than 4 kilometers below the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. He doesn't know exactly which Apollo mission the engines flew on, as the original serial numbers are missing, but he's hoping they are the Apollo 11 engines that brought the first men to the moon. That would be pretty cool. On March 20th, his team's ship was heading back to Cape Canaveral in Florida with the aged pieces to restore them and perhaps determine which mission they came from. So definitely something that I thought this is pretty neat. There's a series of pictures here. Pretty slick looking, so definitely check it out. From BBC News in their technology section, China is trying to create a homegrown operating system. Now, this should not come as a surprise. China has a habit of doing this sort of thing simply because they, want to assert their control over their little world. And so they're working with Canonical. It's an open source operating system customized for Chinese users. The collaboration will produce a version of Canonical's Ubuntu called Kylin, and it will be released in April. I'm curious, I don't know anything about Chinese, so I don't even think I'd be able to download it from here in the United States, but I'm curious, how far it would diverge from Canonical, or if maybe this is just something that they're, doing a bunch of, localization to it to make it, easier for someone from China to use out of the, from a fresh install. From Read Write Web in their mobile section, Apple fixes its busted podcasts app, which I'm a user of. The podcast app that they had before I thought was usable but fairly atrocious. The author, John Paul Titlow, says that he still won't switch. Apparently he's using something else. I haven't read the entire article, but I did want to note that I do have the new podcast app downloaded and on my phone, and I've been using it now for a good day, and it is by and far way, way, way better than the version that they had. It's not perfect by any stretch, but the previous version, boy, it had major problems. I was actually seriously considering switching to another podcast app like Downcast or something of that nature. And that's when I saw this update happen, because I was starting to get really fed up with it. Apple largely has fixed all of the problems that I've had with it. It's considerably better, several orders of magnitude better. Now, obviously, the author of this article isn't going to switch because he's with another podcast app, and it's not good enough to overcome, what he's got with this other podcast app. But for myself personally, they've fixed a lot of the issues that I've had with it. And again, still not perfect by any stretch of the measure. There is no such thing as perfect software, but several orders of magnitude better. So I'll be over the coming weeks, as I cycle through the cycle of podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis. I'll definitely be taking notes as to what's improved and what I like about the new app and what still has issues. I mean, there's a couple glaring right off the top of my head. For one, it didn't appear to, because I generally have keep all unplayed episodes, and the problem with the old podcast app is it kept everything that I was downloaded, regardless of whether I'd listened to it or not, and I had no way to manually delete it. The new one still appeared to keep what I listened to previously that had been downloaded, and I'd listened to it, but it still stayed there. I don't quite know what the behavior is. When I downloaded it, I was like, oh, cool, and went and refreshed and, went through and double checked all the settings to make sure nothing was different from what I changed it for. And, the upgrade partially over, changed some of those things. That was another thing that kind of irked me. I had to go back through all my subscriptions and make sure I had everything set the way I wanted it, simply because it's reset a bunch of my settings. But once I did that, I went through. It did not appear to download all the old episodes that I had previously listened to. But it did give me the opportunity to manually delete the previously downloaded and listened to episodes. So I went through and manually did that. So over the next week or two, as new episodes come in and cycle through and I listen to them, I'm curious if obviously it does not do it when you refresh it and recheck the feed, much like iTunes does when the feed gets checked. Everything that you've previously listened to, if you have that set up in iTunes, it'll go and delete the old episodes. The podcast app on iOS does not appear to do that. So that's so my next question is, does it do it when a new episode is released? So even though you listen to an episode, it stays there until a new one gets downloaded and then it deletes the old one. So I'll see if that's the behavior. The old app didn't even do that and gave you no way to delete it otherwise. So I went and, just so that I had room on my phone, I went and cleared off all the old episodes. And so like I said, over the next week or so, I'll be keeping an eye on it to see what its behavior is in terms of deleting old episodes. Because once I've listened to it, there's no point in keeping it on my phone, but I can understand keeping it there until a new episode is available and then, delete the old one and download the new one. But anyway, we'll keep an eye on that. I'll give an update probably a week and a half, 2 weeks from now. From likecool.com, standing on the Burj, the world's tallest building in the world. National Geographic photographer Joe McNally posted this point of view shot from the top of the world's tallest building. This shot is dizzying. He's standing on top of the Burj Khalifa, straight down. You can see his shoes, and then I kind of have a height problem. Just looking at this photo makes me a little nauseous. So definitely check. I can't keep that up on my screen. Definitely check it out. A pretty mind-blowing photo. He shared it on Instagram. Definitely take a look at it. That's all I've got for this episode. By all means, do visit us online over at quicksurf.com. You can shoot me an email, geekinator@quicksurf.com. Subscribe to the show if you have not already done so, and I will see all of you on the next episode. See you then.